So we are the NDSU Computer Science System Administrative Tools group. I am Alex. This is Carmichael and Donovan, and Casey is not present. Our mentor is Guy Hoganson. We worked on creating a tool suite to upgrade, make Guy's life a lot easier. So he's a systems administrator here for the computer science department, and he provides lab and server access to all of the students. This includes adding computer science students to classes, providing SVN and track repositories for those students that need them, and then granting them lab access if needed. So the problem space is that we wanted a front end that would be able to reflect, to be easy to manage. The initial front end that we had, the scripts all ran out of a command line. You would have to go in, type in the specific script, and give the script, feed the script different parameters in order to run these scripts. It handled CSV in a kind of repetitive manner. It wasn't very easy to just drag a CSV in and run it. You had to this CSV and this CSV, and you had to keep running these different CSV files that were kind of clunky and cumbersome to help. In the back end, we had these scripts which required prior knowledge to knowing what to do. You had to know exactly what these scripts did and how to go about using these scripts. They weren't something you could just look at and go, this is the add users to class script, I need to use this script. You had to know what was in the script. One of the scripts we had, we called it namegen.pl, and it was this giant, probably like 600, 700 line Perl file that was just multiple different functions. Some of these functions had not been implemented yet, so a goal of the group was to clean up namegen.pl and get these different functions into separate files, making them much easier to manage for future use. The characteristics of what was wrong, the scripts were very esoteric. You had to know what you were doing with these scripts in order to use them. We call it you have to think about if you get hit by a bus, how easy would your job be for someone to come in and fill? Well, the way these scripts were operated, it's a good thing I didn't get hit by a bus. So this is very tedious to do, as you had to manually go through these various scripts and run them from a command line instead of just going to like a one-stop portal to upload the CSVs and use. The scripts are prone to errors, as it's just a command line script. It's insecure, as there were no security measures in place. If you had the ability, if you knew where the script was at, you could go in and add stuff to it. And there was a bunch of one-off scripts where they were just ran somewhat occasionally. There wasn't really a static need for them, so the scripts would have various lines commented out and uncommented out in order to run these scripts. So we decided to clean it up.
So I'll talk about our solution. Rather than running scripts directly from a backend or using a command line interface, we decided to split it up in two separate categories. You have your front end and your back end. The front end is a Apache web server that hosts a AngularJS application with some other frameworks. This interfaces with the back end through a CGI module to execute these Perl scripts. Characteristics of this solution: it's streamlined. There's no need to copy input from one script to another script. It's intuitive. You're able to just look at the UI and figure out how to work with it. It's visual. You can manipulate the CSV roster, and it's agnostic. The front end and back end can be swapped out for another implementation in the future development as requirements demand. It's secure. All input is sanitized via the script and via the front end. It all is also restricted to just NDSU subnets. It's future-proof, so you're able to add on to it. It's modular, and it's time efficient. You're not wasting time going between scripts and moving input from one to the other. Okay, so our sprint schedule. Sprint 1, we started off with Chef as the initial plan. We did a lot of research into the Bash and Perl. We got Chef set up with a little bit of configurations, and we did some planning. Sprint 2, we just worked on documentation, and then we also made the switch to the front end, back end model that we are currently using. We prototyped the UI and then dug into the scripts and understood how they worked. Sprint 3, we went and refactored all the UI code, made it look a lot better, added input sanitation, and just updated the look and feel. We also refactored the scripts by splitting out the functions from NangeMPL into individual files and creating a Perl module so that shared functionality can be ran between multiple scripts. We updated the web server security. We added a web application firewall and a web application firewall for sanitation of the input and to protect it from some known web server attacks. Sprint 4, polish up the UI. It's now viewable on tablet. Form field input, validation, backend handled errors, competent code for future maintenance, and handled errors on the script side. In Sprint 4, we also got the server to at least 80%, but we got it to 90+% on the syscat score. This is a list of stuff we've accomplished. At a high level, we accomplished by creating a front end that has an interface into the scripts in the back end. Anything you want to say more about that?
No, that's pretty much it. These are just the specifics. If you want to read them for a little bit, go, hey, that's all the things we did.
Yeah. So as a high level, front end, back end, they communicate. You're able to execute scripts through the front end. Is this Casey still? Mm-hmm. Okay. You want to take care of this one?
I'm not really prepared. Okay. Alright, so from our post-mortem, we realized we made a few mistakes setting out in our project. So the first one, with that we didn't really brainstorm, we kind of just went with our initial plan of Chef. And this one we could have solved by making a pros and cons list and finding the utility of each solution that we could have come up with. So because we didn't do that, that led us to make a switch early on. But that switch was for the better in terms of getting the project completed and giving something that is more specific to the problem that we're trying to handle. Another issue we had that we faced was communication. We tended to rely on face-to-face more than sending messages over email and Slack. So usually those would just fill up in the inbox and we'd go, oh yeah, I remember that you sent me something. So that was a problem that we had. And we remedied that by creating a Slack channel, and but we still needed to contact Guy more outside of meetings in order to get his input. So that was something we still needed to work on. And another thing was we made a lot of assumptions about the roster CSV format, which we later cleared up with Guy to figure out what specifically needed to be taken from the roster CSV in order for the scripts to run. And then lastly, it's just poor autonomy. We tended to wait. It's like procrastination. You just wait till the last second to get it done. Then you do it, and it's all good. So that's just something that continually need to work on as a group, as individuals. And not to be afraid of asking questions, because I think that becomes a blocker if you're trying to get work done. If you're too afraid to ask a question because you might look dumb or something, that's something definitely need to work on. So moving forward, now risks and issues. So for the front end, we had just risks. So one of them is the classification algorithm that I had a hand in, and it's not encompassing or efficient. And what I mean by that is that all-encompassing, it takes at most 25 rows. So if you have 90, it's not going to be as accurate as like doing the whole thing. But this plays into efficiency, because if you take all 90, you have to run, let's see, we'll just do 90, and then however many columns you have, so it becomes like it's a n squared time complexity. So it's just in order to be more efficient, so the page doesn't take forever to load when you upload a roster CSV. If you don't want to make it load forever, you have to cut it off at some point. So we sacrifice accuracy for a little bit just so it can load quicker. So that's just a risk for future development. If they can come up with a better solution, then that wouldn't be a problem at all. Another one is documentation and unit tests becoming obsolete. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but those need to be kept up to date so that that future development doesn't rely on things that aren't true anymore. So that's just an important one to keep in mind. Another one is data sent with spaces and strings get converted to plus, which seems to be the default parameter serialization method, which so when you send JSON over, well, we're sending JSON over, and what it does is if it finds a space, it'll convert it to the plus, which is the default manner. We haven't run into this issue. There's no white space characters within the data we're sending or in the values of the JSON object, so it's just a risk for future development. If you end up having to send white space characters, then this is something you have to consider. And then just simply full name formats. If there's more, then you just got to define them, because right now it's set to a specific set of them. And for the backend, we have two risks which play into each other. So the first and second, documentation and the cleanup of Perl modules, that's simply just back to what Alex was saying about being esoteric. It's still a little bit like that, but it's better because all the scripts are split up now, and then they're named, so you know exactly what they're doing. But it's still not like commented like lines, or there's no like Java doc saying this is what this function does. So there's nothing like that. So that if a future maintainer gets on the project, they'll need some kind of comment. So we can probably get that done within this week to just add a little bit to help future developers out. And then the last one, this one's actually an issue, but it's not a big deal, or at least in my opinion, is that when you try to refresh outside of the home page, it will give you a 404. And basically that's like Apache can't handle or doesn't know anything about the dynamic web pages. So it's like, oh, I can't find it. I'm looking for a static web page or a static path. So that's just a simple thing. And all you have to do to fix that is just go back to the home page and then route. And it's a good thing that and you'll see in the demo, but the app is very flat in terms of navigation, so it's not like you're looking for something way down in somewhere else. So it's not a big issue, but it is something annoying if you want to refresh the page. So after this, I'm going to talk a little more about the inner workings. So I had a hand in doing the little algorithm for this. So I just wanted to explain it for Guy and for anybody that wants to know a little more about this. So first off, when you upload a CSV, it just comes in as text. So it's comma delimited and it has new lines at the end. And I run I think it's from CSV parse rows or something from D3 DSV, and that turns it into an array of arrays with just values. And from there, I have to. So this is where the whole efficiency and not encompassing, as I was talking about. It only chooses at most 25. So if it's less than that, then perfect, it's encompassing. But if not, then it only takes a subset of 25, and then it determines each one. It just runs identity functions on the value and tries to figure out what it is. And this is the one way I thought of doing it. There's other ways. So if the CSV had what I call a header row, so it has it tells you what the column's going to be, then you can handle it that way. But that wasn't the case for every CSV. Guy gave us two, a bad case and a good case, and so I relied on the bad case more, or actually the good case didn't have a header row, so that wasn't like a perfect solution. So I had to manually identify each one, and then from that I used the highest occurrence or the mode in order to figure out what it is. So if most of these are one thing, then I'm going to say it's this thing. So that's how I classify them. And then from the classifications, I remove the junk columns. I remove the header row, and I put in the rejected array. And then I autofill the dropdown. So this is more of like a quality of life thing. And at the end, it catches the results. And I bring this up to Guy because this is kind of important if he wants to add future stuff, is that there's a lexicon of rejected words that I've predefined. So these are words that when I see them, I'm going to put them in a delete me kind of mindset. It's either the keep or the delete me. And so this is like for hard, I do not like this word. I do not want it here. We're gonna remove it, and then that'll remove junk columns for you. And the whole point of this is to make it so the user has less things to see in a table, but also if a CSV has 20 columns, we don't want to show the whole columns, and then you have to scroll horizontally to see everything. So that's a big. Those are like two things to improve how the app works. And here's an example. So here's the roster bad case. And you can see that there's numbers, we don't care about those, or empty values, or graded, computer science, and dates, we don't want all that stuff, we just want the names. Oh, I guess I forgot to mention, the only 4 things we want is UID, email, and first and last name. And if it's a full name, then we'll take that too. So from there, so I was saying before, the header row can tell you what it is, but it's not going to be there every time. So I didn't want to rely on that assumption. And then and this is what you get on the view, just a simple full names. And in the rejected, you'll see the name header, because it might be the case that that actually was a name, and we don't want to completely remove it. And then moving on, we'll talk about some unit tests, or just quickly, I don't want to go into detail too much. But this is during development. I was just writing Mocha Chai tests. So Mocha is the test runner, Chai for the assertion library. And I did it simply by writing, instead of describing all the possible different tests, I combined the happy and unhappy paths together so that, one, I didn't have to describe every single possible case that these functions can fail, but also make it so you can give it anything and it'll test everything, and if it okays it, then that function's good. So if later on you want to add more test cases, it's simple as just adding another line there. It's just a for loop that runs through it. And it only takes I think 50 milliseconds, 54 milliseconds. It's hard to read because it's in gray, but there's little check marks on each one, and it says 35 passing. So right now there's 35 passing tests, but each one has 3 to 10 test cases. So they're pretty, I feel like they're pretty, they have kind of full coverage in that sense. And it only tests the main functionality. I don't want to test any elements being there, because that seems like a very extra test that nobody would care to update. So this is just the vital functionality for the app to work at the bare minimum. And now we'll move on to the demo. So I'm just going to show you what the app looks like now. If you didn't see it during, Guy has seen it a lot, but if you're here for the midterm, it looked different. Now it looks like this. So we have a simple welcome screen. It tells you a little bit about the app and what it does. And you can click learn more, and that goes to the docs. And I made this little comment made with love. So here's the docs. And I treat this as like a GitHub kind of thing where in the intro, it's like the README on a GitHub page where it says how to run it and how to update production sites. So if you want to this is just a little startup on how to get things going if you want to start working on this project. And there's some resources that you can get to give more information. This one acts as a hub for all the important NPM packages that we use. So you can just click on those and it'll redirect you to the document pages for their respective packages. And this one's the most important, I feel. This one explains the project structure. One of the things moving forward when I created the new UI is I wanted to kind of modularize the way the app worked, and I took advice from style guides that existed, and I put them to use. So I broke it down into component-based, And so this is just a high level on all the folders and what their contents are, just so that everybody is kind of sure what each one does, and so they're not like making a new folder or like a new file for something that already exists. This is just to help everybody out for future maintenance. And then I just put some notes here. Remember to update the routes if you add in route, and remember to update the unit tests if you add something new. And it encourages control copy, control V development. So you just copy a folder, you rename it, and you just hook it back up to this like module that it's like you load the dependency in. So that's all you have to do, and you're good to go, and it'll work. So I put that so it's easy to develop on. And then in the right now there's like append and change me comments, and those are just for if you want to add something new, or if you want to tune a variable, so that 25, that arbitrary value, you can change it whenever you want. So now moving on to the main functionality. So we have two add users to LDAP. So this one you probably have seen before. Actually, what is?
Yeah, this is my laptop.
Oh. Is it downloads?
Yes.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So we can test two. I can show you that it like auto pre-populates as per Alex's advice last time. So it's very convenient. And it happens pretty quick. I think it's only on tablets that it runs kind of slow, and so it'll take like a second and then pop up. So if you understand like that it will take time, then you don't have to worry. But if you don't see the screen and nothing changes, then you might get a little worried. It's like, hey, what's going on? I clicked upload, nothing happened. So that's why I try to make it efficient. So that's that. And you can click, you can change these around. The bare minimum is UID and email, and names are very hard to identify. I mean, like my name, for instance, is Carmichael, and that's usually you'll find that as a last name, so it's hard to tell which is first or last name. So these are some of the full name formats. So you have last comma first, first comma last comma space first. So you can get into detail about like the whole format, and you can add more. And then middle is optional. So I won't look for that because it only wants first and last name. And you can hit submit, and this is the response it gets back from the server. So everything's good. This is just more of like a console log trying to debug it. So he's already found. So, and then you can click OK, you can click off. So that was add user to LDAP. And then this one extends the same functionality. What's kind of cool, don't know if you noticed, that the state is preserved for this component. So you don't have to enter the information again if you're working with the same data. But if you want to work with a new one, you just hit previous and you upload a new one. So that's just to streamline that process too. Another way that we streamlined it is if you hit tab, it'll go through each one and go to submit. It'll avoid previous and clear. So that's just a little thing that I put in. I just want to test out here that there's input validation. So it'll tell you that you need to enter a valid name. So these are required. You can see by the little asterisk. So I'm not really sure what to put in here because I haven't been testing this page out.
Class name.
Well, I think I can put anything.
You can put anything there, but it's supposed to be a class name.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna put in whatever. And what's kind of nifty about this is that when you click this one, it'll show you two new optional fields that you can fill in. That's per like in the scripts. There was commented out code, and sometimes you have to enable something, sometimes you have to disable it, and so you comment it out or you uncomment it, so it can execute. So this is simply a case statement that replaces that. So instead of commenting, you just run it like this. And yeah, it's a little bit better that way. And then this one doesn't have any, and then all specifies all of them. And I just won't put anything. And then just another debug of that information. And that's about it. So that's our app. It's very simple. Like I said before, it's not, there's no navigation that's crazy. It's just all there. And I guess I can show you the bad roster case. Actually, all right. So, oh, there we go. Yeah, like I said, it took a little time to load. So I got a little impatient, but it worked. So same thing as you saw on the slide. It has all the names, and you just specify the format just to go to the next page. And then a hidden built-in feature is if you don't like scrolling to the bottom, you just click here, it'll scroll to the bottom for you. So it's a little hidden feature that I put in, which can speed up if you want to go to the bottom really quick, especially if you have a lot of rows in that CSV. So just to show you that it works. And so that's it for the demo. And pretty much the end of our slides too. So is there any questions?
Was there anything you didn't finish?
I think just the turning the debugs into like regular messages. Oh, the code cleanup on the Perl modules, like the commenting. So you still got to do that. And I think there's one little UI bug, but other than that, I think for the most part, it sets out what it accomplishes what it set it out to do.
You mentioned briefly that there are some risk factors for future development. Did you document those properly for this project in the future?
I think we did. All right, this is our documentation guy, so that's what we're looking at.
Not yet.
Like say commenting the code or.
Oh, okay, yeah. In the code, I put specific comments, especially for that parameter one that I was talking about. That seems like could be an issue for future development. I put a comment in there that says something about having to switch out data being sent to like params. But that's something I thought of for the front end to make it so people can understand. I spent a lot of time documenting like every single line. It's like I wonder how people can understand how this works. So if not, then I'm just gonna have to put a comment.